You are listening to a very special Comics Pals interview. I am joined by Cale, and we are actually going to go and we're going to get into the muck because this week we are speaking with legendary superstar creator Mike Perkins, who is working on Swamp Thing right now with Ram V. So we're going to be speaking about that and a whole host of other things from the career of one of the greats, Mike Perkins. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you. I can't
Now-
beat that introduction.
Well, now here's the thing, Mike. We came here to settle some differences. We're really going to get in the muck, and then we can talk about Swamp Thing.
Excellent.
So Marco couldn't join us today. Marco is obviously the king of the swamp as it relates to the Comics Pals. He loves all things Swamp Thing. So without him here, there will be a little bit less gushing, but we promise to do our best to get all of the details on the upcoming Swamp Thing goodness. So before we get into all that, really quick, I want to let you guys know where you can find us all over the internet. Of course, we're the Comics Pals. Leave us a review or a rating wherever it is that you listen. You can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com. Follow us on social at The Comics Pals. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Drop us a subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends, leave us a comment, and make sure that you are letting your friends know that we're out here and you enjoy what we do by sharing it wherever it is that you can. So with that spiel out of the way, Mike, how's it going? How you feeling?
I'm good. The the lockdown hasn't really affected me that much, simply because that's been my life for the last 20 odd years. So there hasn't really been that much of a change.
And it's funny you say that because we've spoken to quite a few creators throughout this time period,
Right.
and we generally get that answer like, well, no,
Right.
I've been able to catch up on work and it's been, it hasn't been so bad. So
Where
It's all these people who are complaining, and they're talking about mental issues, which is a viable point. But it's for me, it's kind of, well, I'm used to it, I guess. I guess I had the mental issues years ago.
all
I got them
comics
out the
creators
way.
are a little bit off.
thrive in the isolation.
Right.
Where are you located?
In Tampa,
You're
Florida.
in Tampa. Okay. All right. Well, nobody's staying in Florida, right? Like,
Right. Especially in the summer.
yeah, of course.
Everybody stays in.
Oh yeah, of course. It's so awful outside. So I want to start by going back a little bit because I first became familiar with your name through Ed Brubaker's Captain America. You got some inking credits on that book,
Yeah.
and that's sort of when my comics fandom began, was in that era. So whenever I think of you, I always think of, my favorite era in comics. Your name became a
Yeah.
staple at that time period. So that sort of 2006, 2008-ish range. Can you speak to what it was like to be a part of some of those books that are now considered to be classics and to have worked at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I'd worked with Epting when I was at CrossGen. We worked quite close with each other physically, because everything was split up into the quads areas. So you had 2 teams to a quad, and in mine it was a really good bunch. We had Steve and we had Butch Geiss, Frank Diamata, Laura Martin, and Rick Magyar. That was our quad originally. And so we all came from this similar kind of background of illustrative art rather than cartoon.
Right.
And so I learned a lot from Butch and Steve. And I think Steve was, after he left, Steve was kind of developing Captain America there. And he was, I picked it up and it was great. I mean, I've been a big fan of Ed Brubaker's stuff anyway, so I was always picking up his work. He and Greg Rucka, they were my 2 favorites. And so I was picking up the book anyway, and I was loving what Steve was doing on it. And then Steve asked me to step in. He needed some help time-wise on the inking. and he'd always enjoyed what I was doing on Butch. And it was, I mean, it was a perfect opportunity for me because I've been doing some, after Cross Gen wrapped up, I've been doing some fill-ins at Marvel, you know, the Electra movie adaptation and all this kind of stuff. And I was working on Spellbinders with Mike Carey, where I was penciling that. And they asked me if I wanted to ink it permanently. And I said, no, I'm trying, you know, I started off in the business as a penciler, inker, colorist. You know, in England, you do everything.
Jack of all trades.
And then
a union jack of all trades, obviously.
Right. Ooh. And then it was kind of, well, you know, I'm trying to reestablish myself as a penciler inker. And I said, you know, it's a great opportunity for me, but I'm going to have to step back and say no. You know, I'll help out whenever you want, and that's fine. And then the next day, Ed phoned me, and he was like, well, what if we give you alternate arcs to do, and then you can help out Epting whenever he needs the help. So that was a perfect situation, really.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's what we did. And the good thing is, I mean, because we both come from that similar illustrated background, and because Frankie was molding it together with the colors, you know, it became very seamless. So it was just a great tag team on there. You know, it was, yeah. I was helping out there, and at the same time, you know, I'm fairly fast with my artwork. So at the same time, I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do when I'm not working on the alternate arcs? And that's when the Union Jack thing came up, you know. So it was still in that Captain America universe, but it was just wonderful. I mean, Ed's writing was wonderful. Sometimes he was a little late because he was working on so many things at that time, and you know, he was getting a little burnt out by it all. But I mean, it didn't show. I mean, the quality was just great. But you know, sometimes I would get dribs and drabs of script, and just, you know, just to keep me busy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he was great. I mean, you know, he's one of those guys that you would love to work with as a creator.
What about working with him specifically do you feel like gave you that feeling that you just described of him being someone that anyone would love to work with? And how do you feel like that process allowed you to do your best work?
I think a lot of it comes from the fact that if you can find a writer whose work you would be reading anyway,
right,
that you know, that pushes you a lot of the way along, you know. And I've been very lucky that I've been able to do that with a lot of creators I've worked with. And so Ed, like I said, Ed was one of those guys who I was reading all of his stuff anyway. So that gives you that added enthusiasm,
sure,
you know, to do it. And you know, it's not a difficult decision to make, you know,
yeah.
Captain America. It was a difficult decision to come off it, but it wasn't a difficult decision to go on it.
So you mentioned how you are a very fast artist. So how do you think you developed that ability? Because a lot of artists, you know, they you know, it takes a little more time, and you know, the monthly grind of comics is definitely a struggle. So how do you feel that you've managed to keep yourself so quick and so active over the years?
I don't know. I think it really comes down to discipline. I really think that's all it comes down to. I usually do a page per day. That's pencils and inks. You know, so it's very much like, you know, if you break that down page by page, then that, you know, that's, let's say 20 pages to keep it simpler. Usually it's 22, but 20 pages, you break that down into a page per day, that's 20 days.
Right.
So that's the whole month, not including the weekends, you know.
Sure.
Sometimes it bleeds over into the weekends, but usually that's, you know, I mean, that's fine. And and then you got to fit a cover in there as well somewhere,
Right.
things like that. So for me, it just comes down to discipline. I mean, I don't set a timer and go, okay, this is
Right.
okay. I'm going to do this page in 5 hours and then just stop at 5 hours. Sometimes I'm on that page for 10 hours or 12 hours or 6 hours or whatever. But it's I have to do that page.
Right.
So it's just a discipline thing.
Well, and when you set yourself up like that with a schedule like that, you
Right.
have that little bit of room, even if you don't want to work on the weekends, you
Right.
can if you have to.
Right. Exactly. And a lot of the times, especially at Marvel, I hardly really got any deadlines. I mean, it was very much like, well, I knew when the issue was coming out, and they could rely on me to get it out on time, so it was very much one of those things where they appreciated me for that, as well as the work itself, but the work ethic, I think that can take you a long way as well.
Right. I mean, I think for the big two, especially Marvel and DC, being able to say this book is not going to be late is huge, because we do struggle with that a lot in the industry. So you make yourself that much more valuable. Right.
And I always try to beat those deadlines as well. It's that competitiveness in me, which is like, I gotta be ahead of that deadline.
Now they say a good artist in comics is either fast, good, and nice, and usually you can get away with 2.
Right.
Which one are you?
Well, when I was first going around the new DC offices, I went into, I'm not going to name names. One of the editors took me into another editor's office, and they introduced me. They said, "This is Mike Perkins," and the editor said, "Oh, the unicorn." I was like,
okay.
What's that? I said, "Well, it's all 3. It's the unicorn."
Tremendous.
Unbelievable.
to have that called out like that.
Right.
Incredible. I genuinely thought you were just going to say, and I went and told this DC editor to where he could shove it, and okay, that's nice. Ticked off the list. Great.
Right.
So that's really funny. So when you work on these titles, what is it that you like to receive as far as a script is concerned? How much freedom do you like a script to have for you to be creative and for you to sort of work your magic?
It doesn't really bother me. It's, I've kind of, most of the time I've worked on full script.
Okay.
Mike Carey and Ed, Greg Rucka, they're all full script guys. That's fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. The only real time that I've worked on a looser plot script was on Green Lanterns with Dan Jurgens.
Okay.
But the thing is, Dan is so visual anyway, because he's an artist. That he would basically write a paragraph, and I would just see it straight away. And the only thing that I was saying to Dan was, could you put some dialogue in there, because I like the characters to be acting,
right,
rather than just standing around not knowing what they're talking about. I want to get that emotion in there, through their facial features, through their actions. And so that's the only thing I was saying to Dan, and he was putting it in anyway. It was perfect working like that. So really, it doesn't really make any difference to me. I've just grown up with the full script,
Okay.
So I'm kind of used to that, and that doesn't bother me.
So you were at Marvel for around 12 years, right?
14 years. Yeah.
14 years. And so then you went over to DC and you've been there doing a lot for a while.
Yeah.
Are there any differences, I guess, between working for one or the other?
Really.
How did it feel when you switched the sides on the baseball team How did
I mean, it doesn't. I mean, for me, even as a fan,
yeah,
it's a good comic is a good comic.
yeah.
For me, it doesn't matter where it's from. I can understand to a certain extent the fan mind of Marvel or DC, but as a fan myself, I don't see that.
Right.
A good comic can come from anywhere, and a lot of that doesn't matter. The only change that I really noticed was DC tend to work more in advance, which is good. A lot of the times at Marvel, it would be you would get the book finished, and then 3 weeks later it would be on the stand. I mean, it was like
wow,
that.
Interesting.
Whereas DC tend to, you'll finish a book and it won't come out for 4 or 5 months. So in that way, I guess it's more kind of traditional publishing. Whereas with novels, you finish a novel, then it takes them a year to market it and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But really, that's the only kind of thing that I can say is the real difference. Other than that, no, I can't really think of anything else.
Yeah, it's so interesting because the way that the industry has grown and evolved, really over the last 10 years, I think, more than any, when you have so many talented creators kind of moving between the two, but also branching out and doing a lot more work in Image or Boom or Dark Horse. There really isn't a point, sort of speaking to what you were saying about loyalty or brand favoritism, when you can get high quality comics that will rock your socks off by your favorite creators from anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I prefer to be in an exclusive contract. And there's no external mechanisms for that. It's more a peace of mind for me.
Sure.
That I can just sit down and do the work, rather than thinking, like when you've got a 4-issue miniseries, you get to the end of the first issue and you're looking around for what's going to come next.
Yeah.
With the exclusivity, it's more of a case of I can just concentrate on the work that I'm doing at this moment, rather than thinking about what I'm going to be needing in 5 months down the road.
Is there any part of you that has stories to tell? I mean, you're an extremely creative person.
Yeah,
I'm sure
totally.
that.
But the thing is, I mean, usually DC don't really like you to do that as much. Marvel were fine with it as long as they were getting their work from you. And I think it comes down to the creator, because they could see that I would do the work. So they said to me, if you want to do some independent stuff, that's fine. But the problem is you have to fit it around that work.
Right.
And so the only real time I did it was with Rowans Ruin, which I did a Boom with Mike Carey. And that came from me. I mean, that was a story that I wanted to tell. And I brought in Mike Carey to help, do the scripting of it and all this kind of stuff. And it was that was just insane, because I was basically the only way. And again, it comes down to that discipline.
Yeah.
It came down to breaking it down. It's like so I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and work on Rowans Ruin until 10 o'clock. Then I would put that aside and then work on Carnage until 6 o'clock.
Wow.
And then by 8 o'clock, I'd be crashed out in bed.
Yeah.
And then 4 o'clock, I'd be up again. And that was the only way I could fit the 2 books in per month. And it was just, it wasn't how we planned, but the scheduling of it was brought forwards. So it was now I've got to fit everything in.
That's almost unheard of.
Yeah, but I wouldn't choose to do that. I wouldn't choose to work that way. I think if I was going to do another creator-owned thing, I would probably take a little more time and fit it in, a few hours here and there.
Oh, interesting. As opposed to blocking
Right,
out
as
the
opposed to
time.
doing a page,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So I would fit in a few hours here and there, and then once, say it's a 4-issue series, once 3 issues are done, then you can schedule it. So that seems to be a better way to work it. But even with that, it's very difficult to find the time, because once you've done the page, your normal page, you're tired. It's exhausting.
I can only imagine.
It's totally enjoyable. I'm not complaining about
Yeah,
it. It's exhausting.
Well, what it spoke to me was just the passion that you had to tell that story, that you were willing to kind of make that sacrifice.
Right. And Mike and I have talked about a sequel and a prequel to Rowans Ruin as well, which, perhaps one day we'll get to. But yes, I've got 10,000 different ideas bubbling around, and it's just finding the time to do it.
Well, that's actually really exciting, and I don't want to let that pass. Rowans Ruin. I had not had the chance to read this. I didn't know that this was
right.
a project that you had done, and so I want to go and pick it up and check it out.
Right.
So the idea that there could be even more, hopefully that does materialize, and I encourage everybody.
The whole
to give it a
thing
chance.
kind of came from a true story in a way. We swapped a house with some old friends in England. They came over here, we went over there.
Wow.
And our house is pretty spotless. It's very clean. And we spent a week cleaning it before we got there. And then we went over there and it was not clean. And basically it was like, we can't stay here. We had a small daughter at the time, and it was like, there's no way we can stay here. So I was sitting down there, and everyone had gone to bed. And I was sitting in the living room, and I was like, this is a nightmare. And then my brain was like, what if it was a nightmare? What if we'd swapped the house and there was a ghost in the house, and all this kind of stuff. So that's where Rowans Ruin percolated from. It was kind of a house swap, but there's that ghost, and then it turned into a murder mystery and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just there, and it was, couldn't get rid of it.
That's so fun. That's such a fun idea. And I feel like there's an era in cinema and television with horror television shows and movies that's
right.
kind of happening now,
right?
Where an idea like that actually makes perfect sense for like a Netflix show.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, we just have to approach the one, go with that, because we got the rights to it back, so we can do whatever we want with it now.
Well, hey, any executives listening now, you heard it here first. I know we're going to talk about Swamp Thing, but I just wanted to ask you one more question about working with Boom. Actually, Boom is, really on fire, and they've had such amazing years these last few years. And, your book, Rowans Ruin, it came out in 2015.
Right.
And that's kind of like a precursor to what we're seeing now. So what was it like working with Boom? And adjacent to that, I've been dying to ask a creator, why Boom? Why work with Boom? What's the incentive there?
Well, I think for me and Mike had a working relationship with Boom already, because he had done Suicide Risk with them.
Okay, right.
And so he had that working relationship, and I got on really well with the guys from Boom as well. And plus the fact, me and Mike, we just want to do our work. And part of the deal with Boom was a 50-50 split. They would get 50%, we would get 50% if it was turned into a film or something like that. There are better deals with, let's say Image or somebody else, but the fact is, we would have to have, we would have had to have gone to all these meetings and all this kind of stuff on our own back, rather than letting them deal with it.
Yeah.
So that was part of the whole thing. We just wanted to concentrate on making comics. We didn't want to be in 10,000 meetings. They've got guys who can do that at Boom. So
right.
Let them do that. If anything ever came out from that.
Right.
But for me and Mike, it was about making the comic. I mean, that was first and foremost. It wasn't about wanting to turn it into a movie.
Sure.
Even though it's perfectly suited for that. But it was so that was really why Boom.
Okay.
Plus all the guys that I love, all the people working there. It was fantastic. I mean, Daphne was the editor. She was just brilliant. I mean, she was on point the whole time, and marketing guys and everything. It was great.
So certainly an experience that you would love to recreate if you out again.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So let's talk a little Swamp Thing. Now Swamp Thing is Swamp Thing is a character who I feel like has kind of a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
People who love this character are super loyal. Like Marco, who couldn't be here today, that's his favorite character, but not the same way that like my favorite character is Jean Grey. You can't tell him anything about Swamp Thing. He owns all the collectibles. Like, he's a fanatic.
This is a dude that when we first got to know him, he wept over a commission that he got done by an artist we all really like. But he saw it and he took it and he genuinely had to go have a moment with it. Like he said he was very touched.
Well, he hasn't got my little clay head that's over there.
Oh,
that was something I did just as I was starting something. I just made this little clay head so I knew where the shadow was falling.
Oh, whoa!
Oh, wow!
On the face,
I
so
bet
you put the light there, and the shadow would drop over, so you could see it perfectly.
I bet you he will pay some money for that if he wants that.
That's so cool. I can't wait till he sees this. Already an exclusive. So when it comes to the fans of Swamp Thing and you taking on this role of working on the character, do you feel more sort of, I don't want to use the word pressure, that can have a negative connotation, but do you feel like you have something to live up to with this character, especially with the artists who have graced this character in the past?
Not as much as previous things, really. The only time I you can basically disable yourself thinking about, Jack Kirby on Captain America or Steranko or whatever. You can basically disable yourself. So you kind of shut that part off and just try to do the best you can do as yourself. The only time I really felt the pressure was when I was doing The Stand, the Stephen King adaptation.
Oh boy!
Basically because it was, there's millions of people who've read that book.
Sure.
And each single person sees the characters differently. So that was a pressure until Stephen King wrote to me and he said, "This is how I saw the character when I first wrote the book." So from that point on, I was like, I don't care what anybody else says. That's it. As far as Swamp Thing goes, I'm a massive fan as well. I mean, that was one of the reasons I really wanted to do the book, especially the Alan Moore stuff. There's been so many great runs on Swamp Thing. But going back to the pressure, I think Ram and we're developing a new character. We kind of went at it. We discussed this before we started the book, and we had decided really that Alec Holland's story has been told perfectly, and we didn't want to go back and reiterate the same themes over and over again. So this is our Swamp Thing. It's a new character. Ram is, you know, he's putting bits of himself in there because it's an Indian character. So that, to a certain extent, that pressure is off.
Yeah.
The only pressure you can put yourself through is just going back and looking at, you know, the artwork of Bernie Wrightson or Bissett and Totleben, and, you know, all these kind of things. And it's
Sure.
Or Yannick Paquette, and, you know, you look at that stuff and it's just brilliant. But I think I'm confident enough in my textural approach and my shadow approach that I can do something different with it as well.
What is it that you think attracts such tremendously talented artists to this character?
I think it's probably your chance to really stamp something onto that character, onto the history of that character. You know, it's very difficult when you've got these legacy characters. I mean, it can be done, obviously. I mean, Epting and Brubaker did it with Captain America. But it's very difficult when you've got these characters, you know, Batman, Superman, all these kind of things, where you got, you know, decades and decades before you to actually come along and really put your stamp on there. I don't think a lot of people really appreciate how difficult it is to put that stamp on there. Right. You know, that's why there's certain characters that come along and the creators go, oh man, I can really do, like, look at Daredevil. You know, it's probably one of the most boring suits ever, whatever, but people really get their teeth into that character. You know, so, and I think Swamp Thing is one of those for me where you can really get your teeth into it and just go crazy on that texture and the mood and everything, you know. And it's you know, and I think for most creators we want to push ourselves. You know, our next job is the one that we're really going to push ourselves. I was having this conversation with Scotty Young at C2E2 last year, and we were both saying to each other, you know, you can never rest on your laurels. You've got to push yourself every single job, you know. And Swamp Thing is one of those things that, you know, you do have to. It's a lot more work going in than a character who's basically naked and, you know, wearing a costume. Sure. So there's a lot more work that has to go in there, a lot more thinking. That's not to denigrate the other ones, but it is a lot more textural quality that goes into it.
And I would imagine also some room for you as the artist to kind of play, and, you know, maybe you can make him a little scarier. You can find the humanity in his face and things like that. Right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's I mean, the stuff that Ram's writing is very lyrical anyway. And so there is that quality to it anyway. And I think I'm pretty strong in getting emotions into my characters. So that's an even better thing with Swamp Thing, because you can just manipulate the face just a little bit more to pull out a little bit more emotion. I think that's another thing that I find intriguing about it.
What has been the working relationship like with Ram so far?
He's great. He's fantastic. I mean, we work very, very closely on it. We'll be chatting on video for, you know, maybe two, 3 times a week, just talking about different things. You know, he's a very visual guy as well. So we'll go backwards and forwards sometimes on layouts. Like, what do you think of this one? How can we zoom in here and all this kind of stuff? So I enjoy that a lot. It's fantastic to be working with somebody like that, where you can really it becomes a team, rather than this person's doing that, this person's doing that. And it's the same with Mike Spicer, who's coloring it, where we just, we'll get together in a chat and just talk about what we can do with this and how we can approach these colors just to elevate it even more. And I think when people see the first issue, they'll see that elevation, hopefully from all of us.
It's so refreshing to hear you speak this way about, corporate comics. A lot of people, they feel like comics at Marvel and DC are just made on an assembly line, but there's so much heart and there's so much passion that goes into that.
Right.
You speak about a character that you genuinely have affection for, and this creative process that clearly has you so jazzed to be working. It reminds you that this is something that you guys get into because of love and passion.
Right. Totally. I mean, I've dreamed of doing this since I was 2 years old, so it's one of those things that never, for me, never stops being uninteresting. It never stops being interesting. It's just, it's just every single day. It's just, you want to get to that board, I'm drawing something at the moment, which is this big element of the green. And I had to finish a couple of pages off before. So I was up at 4 o'clock this morning, but I still don't want to finish working. I'm just like, but I know I've got to because I'll just be exhausted. But I'm just, I want to finish this page. I want to get on it, and it's just, I know this one I'm going to finish tomorrow, but because I've got to have some shut off at some point. But just the fact that I just don't want to stop.
Right.
You'll show us after we're off.
Are there any teases or morsels that you can throw at the rabid Swamp Thing fan base?
We're going to be dealing with characters who have been in Swamp Thing previously. I mean, if you've seen the cover for issue 3 on the previews, as Poison Ivy is in there, and also if you've read the block for issue 3 as well, you'll notice that a certain Holland is referred to, and there's a bit of Woodrue gets in there, and it's
okay.
Yeah, there's we're definitely harking. We Swamp Thing is a progression, and throughout its mythos, it's been that progression of this character who has basically been around through history, and it. My daughter printed something off.
That's quite all right.
This character who's been through history, and it's the history of the Swamp Thing goes on to the next person as well. And so even though there have been other people taking on the Swamp Thing persona, the history of that character has been throughout all of those Swamp Things. So I've just finished reading the script for 4, and there's so much in there that ties into, like, there's parts in there where Ram's gone, okay, choose your favorite bits from previous runs and slot those in the background, and it's I mean, stuff like that just fires you up.
Even that, just the ability to say, to kind of just say, choose your favorite bit, right?
Right.
Such, fandom between you both for the character and for the past. That's just that's so cool.
Well, I think for Ram as well, I mean, it was very much, I think he read comics when he was younger, and then he became a chemical engineer. And then he I think he picked up Sandman, picked up Neil Gaiman. And that's what kind of got him back into comics. And then from there, he picked up the Alan Moore Swamp Thing stuff. So it was very much like, it just exploded his brain that this this stuff could be written. And I think that's the stuff which inspired him, which you can see in the scripts that he's really inspired by it as well.
Well, I can't wait for it. I am a Swamp Thing fan. I don't have a shrine to him like Marco does, but I do
or
have
a clay head.
or I also don't have a clay head. Not yet, but we can talk after the podcast. But I'm definitely going to be picking up Swamp Thing -- 1 from you guys.
The Swamp Thing.
The Swamp Thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we changed the title just for us.
That's March 2nd, so not a long time to wait at all. Yeah. The anticipation for you, is there some excitement for people to finally get to check it out and see what
totally. I mean, Ram and I, we played with this character before. We had the Halloween Future special State, right? And the Future State stuff. So we kind of got it, but we've elevated it even more on this series, and the way it's played out is the way we're doing it is this is the first run of it is season 1.
Yeah, of course.
And if the sales are good, if it's successful, if word gets around that people are enjoying it, then season 2 will follow on quickly from that.
I really love that idea. Grant Morrison.
Right, on Green Lantern.
Yeah, and I found that to be very effective over there as well, just from a reader perspective.
Oh, totally.
There's like a delineation in your mind, like, okay, it's the same, but it's different than what came before.
Right.
And I also think it provides a good kind of jumping on point for new people who might want to get on board.
Right, totally. And I think it's a good way of going, because as a creator as well, it gives you a little bit of a breather before you start the next thing. Well, it gives the readers a little bit of a breather. It doesn't really give us a bit of a breather, because we just carry straight on. But I think that's, I know that it's one of the things that Dan DiDio wanted to do, where it was different seasons going on. And I'm glad they've carried that over, because it's more of a, in a way, it's more of a European approach, doing the albums and all that kind of stuff, which I think elevates the form as well. So it's, I definitely think that this seasonal approach to it can work very well.
Is that something that you would like to see the industry adopt a little bit more?
I don't know about that. I mean, there's, especially with characters like this, you can do it. Things like Batman, Superman, those guys, keep doing their ongoing stuff. But I think you can do this seasonal approach. And it's not the same as a miniseries, because that's finite. But the seasonal approach works as one season. It's like a TV show. The seasonal approach works as one season, or you can have the 2 seasons, or it can go on for as many seasons as it is popular. And so I think that could work very well. I mean, for me, I would see the monthly books coming out as normal, and then the best of those collected into a nice hardback, things like that. That's how I would like to see the comic industry going, because I know for me, I'll, if I really love something, I will buy the hardback as well. It's just one of those things, especially the ones where Image put out, the 18 issues in that big oversized thing. I love that. Even if I got the comics, I'll buy that stuff.
Sure.
So I do like that hardback approach. Do the monthlies, then do a hardback.
You spoke of the European albums, and I recently just moved from Luxembourg, actually.
Okay.
And
I was the president there one year.
I have questions. Not that many, actually. I know Concern, so. But one of the things I really, really admired is the hardback collections
Right.
of comics. It's such a completely different way of collecting comics and displaying comics, and it's a pride in the material, even for, you know, not to denigrate the, you know, our side of the art, but even for the silly guys in capes, like it's so nice.
Totally.
I have an edition of Kingdom Come that that I got in Paris, and I don't speak a lick of French. I can only barely read it. But I love it. It's one of my prized possessions. Because it looks so nice.
I've got some. I don't know if it's here. It might be in the other room. I've got some from Panini in Germany, and they do absolutely gorgeous editions. I'm just looking up there to see if it's up there, but I can't see it. So they've done gorgeous editions of Batman Noel and Joker and stuff like this, and you know, it's in a plastic sheeting, and you know, you pull the plastic sheeting off, and it's partly printed on the plastic sheeting, and the rest of the cover is underneath. They do so many lovely editions.
It's interesting because, you know, we love our comic book characters so much, and comic book fans, you know, we love having, you know, collector's edition items and things like that. So sometimes I'm a little surprised that we don't get more things like that. And I really wish we did. I really wish we did.
Yeah, there was a Spider-Man comic that there was a whole month that I designed. There were maybe about 12 different covers, and it was all different points in Spider-Man's life. So I kind of laid all that out, and then I think I did like 3 of the covers. And
are you referring to Life Story? The Chips?
No. This is a few years back, and so all these covers just basically told the different elements of Spider-Man, and yeah, they were released over here, and it was great. But then Panini Germany put them all in one box set that you could get with a poster of the actual all the covers on there as well. And you know, it's like, why don't we do that?
One of the ones that I found the absolute nicest was a newer edition of Watchmen that was a hard slip case basically, and each issue was a hardback inside the slipcase. Man,
that's actually really cool.
We're doing it wrong here.
Well, Mike, I don't want to keep you. I did want to ask you one last question. I feel like comic creators always have very cool collectibles, so I wanted to ask you if there's anything that you have that's like a one of a kind, or other than the head you showed, which was awesome, that you really hold dear.
Okay,
he's got it. All right, he's looking at his bookshelf.
Yeah, he's at the bookshelf now pulling something. I can't wait to see what it is.
Okay, so we got, let's see. These are kind of gifts that people give me at conventions. So I did a run of Deathlock a few years back. And I had to redesign the costume and all this kind of stuff. So somebody gave me this, which is
whoa,
a Deathlock.
That's so cool.
Little keyring thing, which is great. And then the guys at Disney, they did a whole bunch of character with the Mickey ears. And so they did that one with my design as well.
You guys are definitely going to want to tune into YouTube if you haven't to see this, because that is, I didn't even know that they made those. Is that like a
fantastic?
Wow. Is that a thing that's never been marketed or sold? That was just
I don't know. I mean, I think they did, but I mean, they got in contact with me because they wanted my costume designs and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And then at one of the conventions, they gave me that.
I wonder if it's those
But-
like supermarket
But
surprise box things.
this one is not comic based, but this is a limited edition from Nuremberg, which is a Playmobil, Albrecht Dürer Playmobil. That's which is
Oh yeah.
fantastic. I love that one. That's great.
That's awesome. That's
Tremendous.
awesome. Thank you for
He's
sharing.
he's even got his little painting up there. Hold on.
That's so funny.
See, there he is. And there's his he's got his little easel
Oh my
with
goodness.
his
Oh, yeah, of
painting,
course.
his self-portrait on there.
That's so fun. Well, you did not disappoint. That was awesome. Thank you so much. So again, guys, March 2nd, for the Swamp Thing #1, Ram V and Mike Perkins, with Mike Spicer also on colors. You guys are not going to want to miss this. If you've been reading the Future State Swamp Thing stuff, you have an idea of what you can expect, but like Mike said, they're taking it to another level. So I'll be a part of the ride. Hopefully you guys will be too. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to leave with a plug? Where can the people listen to you speak more? Do you have a Twitter or anything like that?
No, usually I'm on Facebook. I've got my Instagram thing, but that kind of I don't update that as much as Facebook. So mostly the Facebook stuff and my website, which is mikeperkinsart.com.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for joining us. You guys have been listening to a Comics Pals interview with the one and only Mike Perkins. We will see you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
See you next time.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. That was awesome. I
Thank
hope you had a
you.